Alright, what's going on, guys? We've been going through this Discovery series for quite a while now, and things are getting to a point where the discoveries are getting kind of obscure. But we do have some pretty cool gameplay findings today. And while we're on the topic of obscure gameplay findings, did you know that you can actually hit yourself with your flail? Now, there's really no reason to ever want to do this, as you're just going to be chipping away at your health about 1 to 5 damage per time. But what's really weird and obscure is that you can only hit yourself while wearing the deathbed dress. Now, I have absolutely no idea why this is. I tested this across several different armor sets, and really as far as I could tell, the deathbed dress was the only one to trigger this action. Now, this happens with every single flail, and they all do a random damage between 1 and 5. Sometimes you'll hit yourself twice, but most of the time it's just a single hit, so it's not even an effective use of lowering your health, if that's something you'd even want to do. But I'm sure there's somebody out there that can come up with a reason as to why this happens. I don't think it's a glitch, but when it comes to FromSoftware, you never really know. Now, here's a pretty obscure lore finding. We all know that little traces of golden light filter off the sights of grace around the map. It's the manifestation of the guidance of grace, blessed by the greater will to our tarnished, to aid us on our journey in becoming Elden Lord. And the guidance of grace leads us to many points of interest. However, its primary purpose serves us in guiding us to the Shard Bearers, the demigod children of Queen Marika. But a really interesting observation was made in that there are 2 demigod children that the guidance of grace does not lead us to, those 2 being Malenia and Mohg. So it really raises a question: why would the greater will not send us after these 2 shard bearers? And I think there's some really interesting theories to go along with this. The greater will is an outer god. It's one of many outer gods that are quarreling to take control of the lands between. But among the demigods, the ones that we are sent to, all have a strong connection to the greater will. But the interesting part is that Mohg and Malenia both have communed with different outer gods. Mohg in particular draws his power from an outer god called the Formless Mother, while Malenia is afflicted by a curse of an outer god of rot. So the question arises, does the greater will not want them to die? Or are these respective outer gods of these 2 staving off the influence of the greater will in order to keep this territory that they've claimed? It's definitely interesting to think about, and worth a lot more speculation. Now, here's one that I really wish I knew when trying to navigate the Subterranean Shunning grounds, because I have to be honest with you guys, this is probably one of the worst areas in the entire game. I would much rather go through Blighttown several times over than ever have to do this area again. But now that we know this, you don't ever have to, because a new skip was discovered that lets you bypass the entire area of the Subterranean Shunning grounds. It's a little bit of risky parkour, but as long as you've opened up the gate in the first shortcut, just follow the route that you saw me doing, sprint against the wall and jump to where you hit this first layer of bricks sticking out. And if you do the jump correctly, you'll end up in the elevator that takes you straight to the boss fight. Now, it is a tough jump to land. It took me about 10 tries to finally get it, but the thing is, I was severely overestimating how far I had to jump. But I can promise you this, it's a lot faster than trying to navigate that whole pipe maze. And I will definitely be using this on every single playthrough going forward. Because man, doing that area one time was more than enough. Up next, we have some inspiration that I thought was really interesting, relating to Ranni's Darkmoon. If you didn't know, there are several moons throughout Elden Ring that sort of have this cosmic mystery associated with each one. There's Renala's full moon, Ranni's Darkmoon, and then the black moon of the Eternal City, which may or may not be Ranni's moon as well. But the lore behind Ranni's Darkmoon goes as follows: that when she was young, she was shown by her mother the Dark Moon, which allowed her to reach her potential and awaken the powers of ice and cold. But she was mentored by a snow witch, and eventually decided to shed her Empyrean flesh and forsake the greater will by plotting the Night of the Black Knives, which would eventually lead to the Shattering. But it becomes very interesting when we take a look at some pseudo-astronomy and the name that coincides with the fabled Dark Moon. In 1918, Walter Gornold proposed the idea of a second moon. He believed that there was a second moon that followed the current moon that we know in Earth's orbit, only able to be seen in certain eclipses. And his reasoning was that the moon was too dark, that the only possible way to observe it would be for it to be blocking out the sun, and he gave the moon the name Lilith. Lilith is a character from Jewish mythology who is sort of inserted into stories of the Bible. She is said to have been the first wife of Adam before the creation of Eve and her story goes as follows: that when God created Adam from the clay and the dust of the primordial universe, he created Lilith at the same time. But she was not like Adam. That with God's vision of woman being the servant of man, Lilith did not want to be obedient and became instead seen as a demon. But it was because of this disobedience to God's will that resulted in her being casted out of the Garden of Eden. Now, things really start to line up when we consider the major principle there, that the theme of Lilith and Ranni are both disobedience to the will of the gods. Ranni directly states that she did not want to obey the greater will, and swore that she would not be controlled by the two fingers. Now, there is a lot more to look into with the idea of the Darkmoon, and its relationship to astrological symbolism. However, that's a topic for another time, and stretches far beyond just Ranni's story. Something you may have known about that's been present in all of the Souls games is that different enemies are weak to different types of damage, and certain weapon types can also have weaknesses or resistance based on what you're fighting. And one of the ones that was recently discovered is that unlike the Dark Souls games where dragons were weak to lightning and a little bit weak to fire, this weakness has now been changed to dragon weapons. And every one of these weapons have a respective damage counter, which I'll have on screen for you. But you'll notice that the ancient dragons, the ones that wield lightning, have a little bit more resistance than the lesser dragons. But this graph here is useful if you want to decide which dragon weapon to use. But another really interesting observation was made when it comes to dragon weaknesses, and how certain enemies are registered about dragons or ancient dragons, is that apparently Dragon Lord Placidusax isn't actually registered as a dragon at all. There is a few reasons why this could be, with Placidusax actually being an Elden Lord, and therefore a lot more powerful than the other dragons around the world. But that would be very heavy speculation, and this could just be a gameplay oversight like he said. But it is really cool nonetheless. Now, this next one blew my mind. And one of you guys told me about this over on Discord, which if you're not in the channel Discord, definitely join that. I'll have the link pinned in the comment below. But it's the visual inspiration behind the form we currently find Miquella in. And if you don't really know what you're looking at here, Miquella, along with his sister Malenia, was born with a curse, and his was to forever remain a child. But despite his eternal youth, he was still regarded as the most fearsome Empyrean. But in order to bypass his curse, he contained himself within an egg inside his halig tree, so that one day he could be reborn into godhood. However, during his slumber, he was kidnapped by his half-brother Mohg, who seeks to be his consort whenever he awakens. But I was blown away whenever y'all showed me that this scene is ripped straight out of a Salvador Dali painting. This painting is called Geopolitica's Child Watching the Birth of the New Man, and is eerily reminiscent of the state we find Miquella in. As you can see, both are contained within eggs that are cracked, with the arm reaching out, and Dali's painting even has the drip of blood coming out that we can see when Mohg emerges. Now, when looking into the symbolism of this painting, the object that you can see above the egg is supposed to be a womb, and we can see that Miquella's egg is residing in a sort of pelvic bone, which I find really interesting. Now, I am planning on making a full video about the artistic inspiration of Elden Ring, so that will be coming at a later date, and I'm going to save the really deep analysis for then, so subscribe if you want to see that. Up next, we have a really cool piece of cut content. One thing that still holds a lot of mystery even in the current understanding of the lore are the stars that Radahn was holding back with his magic. It's said that even in his rotted and insane form, he still stifled the cosmos and held the Order of the Stars at bay. And we know that upon defeating Radahn, the stars are unleashed across the sky, and a meteorite crashes into the lands between, opening the hidden path to Nokron. But it was recently discovered that this is actually not how this event was going to originally play out. A new discovery suggests a different turn of events, that this meteorite may have crashed right into the arena, because data miners discovered that hidden beneath Radahn's arena is a giant crater. Now, there's a few theories as to what this could be. It could very well be a change to the map that was going to occur during the second phase of Radahn's fight, when he sort of becomes a meteor himself. However, when this is rendered in-game, there's a giant hole there, and it is oddly close to Mohgwyn Palace. So it's possible as well that this may have originally been the entrance to Mohgwyn Palace in Nokron. However, it was ultimately cut, and from the looks of things, I'm not sure all the code is there to fully recreate what would have happened at one point. So like most things in this game, that's ultimately up to your own speculation. And this final finding today comes from my friend Radahn, whose channel you definitely need to check out. He's currently doing a lore through of Elden Ring, and in that lore through he noticed that the swamp of Aeonia bears a very striking resemblance to a butterfly. We know that in the swamp lots of Aeonian butterflies can be found, and even when Malenia takes her true form as the goddess of rot, she grows wings made out of butterflies. So it definitely raises some questions. Why is the scarlet rot so associated with these butterflies? And does this mean that the area where the scarlet goddess blooms naturally take that form as well? So definitely some food for thought there, and probably something we're gonna have to come back to. But guys, that's going to pretty much do it for the video today. I hope I showed you something that you didn't already know. And if I did, be sure to leave a like on the video. You guys are absolutely loving these Discoveries videos. And my goal with these is not to show you some surface level stuff, to try to go beyond things that players will naturally pick up on. I really love to find things that go beyond the game. And if you have a discovery that you haven't seen before, don't hesitate to message me over on Discord. I promise I'll do my best to get back with you. But with all that out of the way, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.